Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
How is everyone doing today?
Alhamdulillah, things are good. Saad, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing well and excited to have an interesting conversation about this topic. So and also to hear what others think of it as well. So today's topic is negativity at the workplace, right?
Saad, I can see you smiling. You're talking about negativity and you're smiling. You should have be feeling down. Oh, negativity, something like that. All right.
Investigating topics makes me happy. That's why I'm smiling.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah,
go ahead.
please go ahead.
How would you like to start, Saad?
Yeah, I think we can start by talking about what negativity at the workplace looks like, or what do we mean by negativity at the workplace, right? So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. So negativity at the workplace, as the subject says, means something which is not positive, and there are some indicators for negativity which helps you identify what is the environment, and which also helps you identify the level of the negativity at the workplace, whether it is minor or it is medium or it is very intensively negative. So there are a couple of indicators. The first and the foremost indicators that you will find in the organization, you'll find people talking negatively about the company in the corridors, or in their meetings, or in their one-to-one discussions, where they will talk badly about their managers or about the corporate policies or whatever. So this is since the attitude is contagious. So what happens when one person starts talking negatively about the company? That means it opens door for the other people as well, right? So then two people will start communicating negatively, and then so on and so forth. So this is how it starts, and it goes on further and builds over a period of time. So complaints is one of the things. Sometimes people have distrust, means they don't trust each other, they don't open to each other, and they confine themselves, confined in the sense that they have barriers in between, and everyone works in a solo manner, and they don't work in teams. So in such situation also, when the trust level is low, people have high barriers, and they try to safeguard themselves, and because why they want to safeguard themselves? Because they want to protect their face. And one of the reasons, or one of the other indicators, is that people take things personally. Means rather than holding themselves accountable, they take things personally. So I remember in one of the departments that I happened to coach some times back, what happened is that we noticed something very interesting. So this department was invited to to contribute in a program for young fresh graduates. And how was the contribution? Is that different departments were asked to give one of their senior technical members who would come and make presentation to these fresh graduates. So one of their engineers, who was working on a very high-end technology, which could have been a very interesting topic for their students. So he was approached, and the guy agreed, and he was very happy that he would have an opportunity to come and speak to the young fresh graduates. So the date was committed, the topic was finalized, everything looked happy and smooth, until the time that his manager came to know about this. And what happened? The manager was upset, and he said, "How come?" Means the manager, "How come I didn't know if you are going to speak to the students?" Right? So now the speaker was a little upset, and of course afraid as well, because ultimately his annual appraisal was in the hands of this manager. So and then Then he contacted the organizer and he apologized. He said, I don't have any other option other than to pull out because my manager is upset. So since I know the entire scenario, so the organizer he felt also very embarrassed. So he said, "All right, okay, let me speak to your manager." He said, "No, no, 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 please don't speak to the manager because what will happen if you the organizer if you went and spoke to my manager, he will think that as if I have complained against him, right? So it will make the scenario even worse." So ultimately, because of this situation, he pulled out, and that topic could not be presented to the fresh graduates. So coming back to the point, why did I bring this story? Is that this is one of the indicators where people don't have trust in between the team members. They safeguard their own positions first, right? Before they open up for the organization. So these are since you asked for indicators, how do you identify the negativity at workplace? This is one of the indicators that people take things personally. So I hope I was able to put my point across.
Yeah, you did. And I just want to mention that you mentioned the thing about trust that's something that we have talked about before as well
That's
on this
correct.
platform. And in fact, a few weeks ago, we had a session on psychological safety and trust, and that is a topic we've explored. And I think that session is also available for anyone to view. So just coming back to the story, the few things which I got from this was one that the person was very much scared for someone to go and talk to his manager because he's afraid of the
Yes.
consequences.
Mhm.
And also the manager's reaction that why did I not know?
Yes.
I am the manager, right? So instead of enabling and encouraging his employees, he was more concerned of himself. So in both these situations, like I can tell that the focus is very much on yourself, not serving your team or
That's
serving your
correct.
organization. You're just going in the self-protection
Yes, that's
mode,
correct.
right? And the other thing which you mentioned is, I think you mentioned something along the lines of groups. So I've noticed this as well, that silo culture is a very good indicator of negativity at the workplace. When teams run in silos, then it means something is wrong. And very interestingly, what I've seen in sometimes siloed organizations is within some teams, the culture is really good, but they don't want to interact with other teams because they say that team I'm not going up to floor 15 because floor 15 is very negative. So I just stay on floor 12 and my floor is good. But just you're trying to insulate a problem, but you're not really addressing the problem, right? Because the two parts of an organization are disconnected, and that is not a quality of high functioning organizations. High functioning organizations are very well connected, very collaborative, and people feel like they can approach each other very quickly, right?
That's correct.
Right.
See, all depends. I would like to add something over here. It all depends on the information flow and how the information is processed in an organization. So people over here, our audience, I would recommend go and look out for Ron Westrum. Ron Westrum's organization culture. So this study was done probably almost like 18 years ago, 2004, when he wrote his first paper about organizational culture, and he came up with 3 organizational cultures. One he called pathological, one he called bureaucratic, and the third one is generative. These 3 cultures. So the pathological is power oriented, where people hold on or cling to the information. They don't give out the information. Bureaucratic is very process oriented. Mean you do this, you don't do that, and so on and so forth. It's just like it reminds me of the funny incident, cartoon like incident. Let's say if some theft happens on this side of the road, the police station says no, this, since it is on this side of the road, we are not responsible, you go to the other police station, right? So people try to shrug off their responsibilities in bureaucracy. But what is a generative culture? Generative culture is the highest level of organizational efficiency culture, where people are very much trusting each other. The information flows freely. They don't have scapegoating culture. Scapegoating is another issue. Yeah, you find someone now who did it, who broke it, and then you kill the person. or fire the
Mm,
person or whatever. So
mm,
scapegoating is another indicator of a negative culture. So these
right,
are all different few indicators which help you identify what kind of culture you are in or stuck in rather.
right, right.
All right. Hmm.
Right. Uh-huh. So I see we've also had a few people join us and are consistently joining us. So I just want to say again, for those that joined a bit later, welcome to the conversation. And please contribute. Please, you can send a message on the chat if you have any thoughts about what we are talking about, or you can even open your mic and share. You just have to raise your hand and do that. So we are looking forward to hearing from you and engaging with you during this conversation. Right. Um, so now that we
Sure.
have identified the indicators, would you like to, uh, I'm sorry, were you going to say something just now?
No, definitely we'll proceed further. Then once the culture is identified, then what do we do next? Right.
Exactly. So before, let's let's talk a little, let's touch on the consequences of this culture, right? So you mentioned information flow as well, and what impact that has. So in terms of like one of the common characteristics that I have seen in people who work in a organization with negative culture is they lack motivation, right? They lack the drive to solve complex problems. And a lot of times, if even they sit around in a team, the consensus is, this can't be done. Or why should we try this new way? It's never gonna work, right? So they are just redoing something that has been done in the past. They're not innovating.
Mm.
And from my viewpoint, at least, given what what the industries demand, the solutions the client expect, and also to be efficient, you have to constantly innovate. And just the negativity and innovation just cannot go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, right.
You brought a very interesting point, Saad, here in this conversation.
Uh-huh.
Innovation and negativity. So I'll go back to the Ron Western culture that I mentioned a moment before. So Ron Western also highlighted this, that in a negative culture or in pathological organization where the information does not flow freely, innovation or
Mm.
is considered a problem, where people
Mm.
whoever brings a new idea, he either shut down or he's not
Right.
listened to, and this is how people don't innovate, or they lose the motivation to move further in the organization. And they say, we are asked to work between 9 and 5, and we'll come at 9, go at 5, that's it. So in
Right.
between, what we do, we don't really care.
So they're just seat warmers, right? We call them. We
Yeah.
call them
Seat
seat
warm.
seat
I
warmers.
like this. I like this one. Seat warmers.
Right. Right. Right.
All right.
Hmm.
Now, this something else also I would like to add here, which is a buzzword that probably everyone is familiar with, and that is called engagement. So
Hmm.
engagement is not people's happiness at workplace. No, engagement means that people are happy. At the same time, they bring their emotional commitment to work. That means
Hmm.
they love their work and they feel happy if they are able to accomplish, or
Hmm.
they make effort to get things done. So it does not mean that people spend extra hours at workplace and they burn themselves out or they midnight oil. No, emotional commitment means they feel happy at accomplishments and they feel sad if they're not able to accomplish, and they do something about that. So this is called emotional commitment. So engagement is, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about only happiness, and it is a higher level of emotionally committed to the work. So
Hmm.
in negativity, when the negativity is higher, people are not emotionally connected at the workplace, and their engagement level is low. So
Right. Right.
this brings me to another example. See, we can always go further as you, because you wanted to go for the consequences, right? So we'll come back to consequences. So I happen to coach a team sometimes back, and in this team, the people felt very negative, and they felt negative about the manager. And they also felt about the director, and there were a few causes behind that, and I'll tell you some of the reasons. So one of the reasons was the manager. used to be not in the office for a large amount of time of the day, and sometimes he would not come, and he would just call the team and say, sometimes don't even call, and call and say that I'm at this place, at this ministry, this department, and with the client, and so on and so forth. Now, when people they did not see their managers for a long time, they start losing their commitment. They start losing their engagement. Another reason that some of the team members, because I happen to meet almost like 25 people out of this 29 people team that I'm talking about. So the director, some of the team members mentioned, we have never seen the director at all. So after this initial conversation with all these 25 different members, then I had some sessions with the director as well. That was a very interesting conversation. The director was very keen to raise the level of engagement in his department. So the director was a smart guy, and he started meeting their team members individually, one-to-one. And it has a very profound impact on the entire team, and the people started getting connected and getting committed to back to work by this single action from the director, means meeting people one-to-one.
Because he started engaging with them more. I also want to share a story here, because you mentioned about, and I have shared this before on this platform, but it's very prominent. So I think you may have heard of Simon Sinek, right? Famous author. He's written the book Start with Why, and talks a lot. So obviously he does a lot of traveling all over the world, and he presents at conferences, etc. Right? So he gives a interesting example where he said, I stayed at 2 hotels within relatively short durations of time. One of them was a Four Seasons, and the other was he says it's Caesars. So when he entered the Four Seasons, he felt all the staff was very committed, right? They not just committed in that they have to do their job. They were asking him, how are you today? They, in the hallways, they would stop, they would have conversations with him, right? Not just from a service perspective, they were very much enjoying their job. And he sensed this. So the next morning when he was having coffee, he spoke to one of the baristas at the breakfast place, right? And this guy is also really happy making coffee with a smile on his face, 7 a.m. in the morning. So Simon Sinek asks him, I want to ask you a few questions, right? What do you think about this job? And the guy immediately says that I love my job here. So what made his ears perk up, Simon Sinek, because this is what he does for a living. This is the guy didn't say, I like my job. He said, I love my job. He said, I want to know why you love your job. And then this guy said that I love my job because the managers in the Four Seasons consistently talk to me throughout the day. They ask me if I need anything to do my job better and how I'm doing. They really make me feel that they care about me and that I'm part of a wider whole. And then Simon Sinek went and stayed at the Caesar's Palace. And sorry, no, he didn't stay at the Caesar's Palace. This same guy also worked at the Caesar's Palace. And he said to Simon Sinek, do you know why things are different there? Said, I don't know. Said, because over there, the managers only approach me to ask about how much coffee I've sold. They are not concerned. They are not concerned about how I'm feeling, how my job is going. Every couple of hours, a manager checks in on our books, and that's all they care about. So just to get back to that, there was a story as well about engagement and the impact it has on how people feel about what they do, right? So let's also hear from the audience. I think we have a quiet group today, so I'm wondering if we can prompt you guys to share some stories from your side, from where you work. How have you felt about this topic?
And how has been your experience?
Thank you, Saad and Nair. I think this has been very interesting conversation so far. Actually, what I was looking for is what are the short-term and long-term impacts of if we don't take care of this negativity at work, if we don't stop these people spreading this bad news all around all the day. So what happens to those organizations? Just curious to know.
Okay. So Saad, can I respond to this?
Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. See, this attitude is contagious. So what happens when you let one person, when you allow someone to do bad mouthing for the organization or for the managers? Actually, you are opening the door here. that means you're allowing every other person to do the same about the organization or about their managers and so on and so forth. Since it is contagious, so it moves from one person to the other, to from the other to the to another too, and then it grows exponentially, and soon people will start talking about the organization negatively. So I will tell you, or I would like to narrate you an interesting story over here. So there was a team of around 17 or 18 people that we happened to coach some time back. And one of the major, of course, the team had some challenges. They did not have manager for quite some time, and there was no proper direction from the organization. So team was really suffering. So uh, in that situation, a couple of people started talking negatively about team and also about the organization and about the fact that they are not listened to, no one cares about them, and so on and so forth. So then we ran some workshops. It was me and another coach working together to uplift the morale of this team for quite some time. I think it was a couple of months engagement. So in during these meetings with one-to-one coaching sessions, we identified a couple of people who were extremely negative about the team. And so there were more than three, or I think four people were there who were talking negatively. So out of them, two were extremely negative. So we tried to coach them and help them look at the positive side on their jobs and so on and so forth, but they were not willing to change. Finally, the department director had to call them individually. He called them one-to-one separately, and then gave them the warning. And in that warning, they were given almost a month to fix their issues, or otherwise, the department director says that he does not mind letting them go. Sadly, the situation did not change, and these two people, the director decided to let them go, and they were laid off. So this is one of the extreme consequences of being negative. If the organization could sense and they could feel that some or one or more people are spreading the negativity, and if the organization is concerned about this, this could be one of the consequences. Now see this. This is, I would rather say, this is a shorter consequence. But what happens? Negativity becomes becomes a part of habit. That means you start complaining about everything, whether your manager, your boss, your neighbor's dog, or your mother-in-law's cat, or the atmosphere, the traffic on the road, or for that matter, anything. So what do? You start finding faults in every person. So whether it's your spouse, children, or anyone for that matter, right? And it becomes a habit, and you do it more, and it becomes a reinforced habit over a period of time, till you don't see anything positive, and you become critical to everything. Right. So this happens over a period. This may happen. I should not say this happens, but this may happen to a person over a period of time. So this person is of no use after some time, because he is ultimately negative. So and now if you see, whenever, as I mentioned earlier, attitude is contagious. That means whenever this person is meeting some other person, he spreads negativity around. So that means he is not toxicating himself. I should not say toxicating. I should say whatever you may call it. Oh, let's say toxicating.
I think we
Poisoning himself.
understand. We understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, we get what you're
So
trying to
not only himself, everyone around, right?
say.
And he is closing doors for his future progress as well, because companies don't like people who are negative. Companies, people who are progressive, who are positive minded, and who want to move forward, right? So coming back to the question, this was a question, right? What are the consequences? Yeah, so I narrated one story that I saw personally happening, and some of the short-term and long-term consequences.
I picked up another thing there. So when you were talking about this person who is very critical and negative, one of the things is they are critical and negative. It's always someone else's fault, right? So they are also embodying the victim mindset, right? So
That's
there's the
correct.
victim and the victor mindset. And negativity is part of the victim mindset, right? So it's always someone else's fault. It's, it's my boss or my colleague or company policy. It's never me. Or as you mentioned, the weather, right? Or so that's one of the consequences. The other thing that occurred to me in terms of organizational impact, one of the challenges of organizations right now is employee retention. And negativity at the workplace, I think, is one of the key drivers behind people leaving, right? So there's a common saying, people leave bosses on jobs or teams, right? So I think employee retention impacts the organization and also impacts the individual, right? Because maybe if the culture gets better, that individual will be more committed and opportunities will be created for themselves and their organization in the same place. They might not feel that they have to change organization. So that could be a short-term consequence, but for an organization, I think that's also a long-term consequence, because if you don't have individuals developing at grassroots level, then the base of your organization keeps shifting. And if it shifts too quickly, then it feels very transient, right? It becomes the organization becomes like a hotel, like people come 6 months and then they're gone. So there's no consistency to visions, because you have better understanding of this than me, but actually realizing visions, actioning visions, then keeping track of those KPIs, it's not something that happens in 6 months, right? It's a long-term process. So if you have a negativity in an organization and people are not committing to their roles, or retention is low, then the organization cannot actually follow through with its vision and even keep track of, is the direction working on or not working, right? Which is a serious long-term consequence of that, right?
So thank you so much for shedding light on this long-term consequences. Yes. All right. So let's move on further. If anyone has any question, please throw your questions so that we can address them.
I think there is a hand up here. I can see a hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have another question here. Okay, so there are certain organizations in which there are very clear boundaries between different departments and teams, and everyone is concerned by their part of the work or their job to be done. And whenever the projects are getting delayed or the work is not getting done, they start pointing fingers at the different departments who are actually responsible for the delays and not being performing up to the mark. So do you think that this also reaps negativity in the workplace, or this is part of the process, and this is kind of a good complaining culture, because it tends to help in getting the work done and highlighting where the problem is? Can you shed some light on this?
If I let me understand that question first and repeat what I understood. What do you mean to say that in certain situations where the organization culture is extremely negative, they get their things done? Is this what you said, or the otherwise?
No, I think let me rephrase my question. So my question is that there are many teams working on a same project, okay?
All right.
And the project is getting delayed. Now everyone is pointing finger at each other, and they're trying to find out where the problem lies. So do you count this as a negative culture, or this is something which tends to get work done? So this is something kind of positive.
All right. This is part of the negative culture, and if you remember, we spoke about this. This is called scapegoating, when you point fingers towards someone. So who did it, and then that guy gets reprimanded, or he's killed. Is the Ron Westham calls this shooting the messenger? Means someone who has done something wrong, or someone who brought the bad news, he is shot dead, not in the literal sense, but he is shot at. So coming back to the point, this is it is not a sign of growth oriented culture. It is a sign of power oriented culture, which is pathological culture. And this kind of organization, they don't grow.
So what are the alternate ways which will help these kind of teams to find the problem, fix the problem without hurting anyone in the project, in the team?
I think that's a very valuable question. How to do that? So that is called blameless retrospection. Means you after a project is done or something has been completed, then you sit down together and you bring up what are the lessons learned, how we can do things better so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we have done, or we do not land up in the errors or in the problems that we landed in earlier. Means what are you going to do differently, which is called DSD, doing something different. So this is instead of blaming that you did it or you did that and so on and so forth, the entire team sits together and then talk about future directives. And this is what all coaching is all about as well. Coaching does not dig into the past issues. Whatever happened. Yes, how it can be changed, how it can be prevented to recur, or recurrence could be prevented, right? So what could be different, done differently in future? So coming back to the point, this is called blameless retrospective meetings, and this is a part of our culture of good organizations. They don't scapegoat, they don't blame, but they look at their mistakes, and the mistakes become a reflective inquiry process. That means they take mistakes as a learning opportunity, and then they grow further, and then they grow further, and so on and so forth. So did I answer your question?
Yes, yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank
Very
you.
much.
I
So
learned a new acronym today.
what
DSD.
is that?
This DSD.
Yeah, DSD, doing something different. Yes.
I really love that. Yeah, I did not know that was something that was even an acronym. So I learned something
Yeah,
unique. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
DSD, doing something
And
different.
the other way to would you agree that what you just said could also mean what you mentioned, blameless retrospect? Did you say blameless
Yeah, right.
retrospection? Right.
That's correct.
So
Yes, blameless
could
retrospection.
is another way of saying that is could it be hard on the problem, soft on the person? So could
Yes.
that be another way of saying the
Yeah.
same thing? Right.
Yes. Hard on the
Right.
problem, soft
Right.
on the person. Yes, that's correct.
Right. Interesting.
Hmm.
There is a question here from Zubair. Zubair, thanks for questions. He's saying how to gain the credibility of job done at workplace.
Credibility. All right. Credibility is a very subjective word. We'll try to address this, although it is not our subject over here in today's discussion. But credibility comes from many different components. For instance, it is also based on the competence and knowledge. It is also based on person's honesty and many other things. So credibility is something which is apparently it's a single word, but it comprises of many different things in behind.
Mm.
In short, you say how to gain the credibility of job done at workplace. So credibility is not about the job, Zubair. Credibility is about the person. Credibility is about the team or a department, and so on and so forth. So how do they gain credibility? It happens over a period of time. Gaining credibility is not overnight job. No, not at all. So you need to build trust. For instance, let me tell you a few things. Delivering on commitments means on committed dates adds to your credibility. Performing or delivering at the level or the quality of level that was demanded or that was earlier agreed upon is again, it adds to your credibility. So these are a couple of things that will add to your credibility. I hope I was able to answer your question. So Saad, let's move on. Right. So we
Yep.
talked about, so far we have talked about, let's summarize and then we'll move on further. So we have talked about what are the indicators of negative workplace. And then what we also talked about the consequences, the short-term and the long-term consequences of negativity at workplace. So let's move on how to handle the negativity at the workplace.
The million dollar question, right?
Yeah,
How
the
do you
million. Yes.
how do you handle negativity?
How
Right?
do you handle that? Right. Okay. So
Mm.
let's move on. Now, in my limited short opinion, credibility is not credibility. Thank you, Zubair, for bringing this term. The negativity.
I think he gave
Let's
us
come
an
back
idea
to
for the next one.
Yeah.
I think. Thank
We
you.
can talk about this,
Yeah.
by the way. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Sorry.
Okay.
So
So
just coming back to
negativity.
the.
Yeah. Let's come back to the negativity. Now, negativity needs to be addressed at three different levels. So If you are at the organizational leadership level, means if you're a leader, if you are at the top higher hierarchy or senior leadership, then you can do something about the negativity at the workplace. So first step is to gauge the negativity. Means run some kind of surveys to figure out what's really going on here. Because see this, you cannot improve anything unless you measure it. So that means if you cannot measure, you cannot improve. Very simple, right? So first baseline you will get the first baseline by when you run a small little survey, be it in form of paper survey, online survey, or interviews of, let's say, a random sampling interviews, whatever. Some in some way you have to define the baseline. So that gives you the starting point, and then you start working. So what are the things that you need to work on? For instance, maybe people are, and I witnessed this in some of the teams, why the teams are negative or they lose their motivation at work. Why? Because the work style is very haphazard. Means although the requirement is critical, but still there was a possibility that work could have been planned better, but it was not. So because of that, people started ending up sitting late at workplace. So that means 12 hours, 14 hours, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the reasons, excessive workload because of unplanned parachute projects. And this creates negativity. So come back to the point, these are few things that need to be done if you are at the leadership level. So excessive workload is another one. Sometimes the leaders are not communicative. So I would rather recommend over here, our audience, that to read Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni books. He has authored at least 11 or 12 books on corporate leadership, on how to build trust, and what are the different types of team members. And very fantastic books, very well written. And some of the books are written in form of stories, especially the 5 dysfunction of teams. So Patrick Lencioni also talks about this leadership, that leadership needs to be he uses this term, by the way, over communicating about their visions, about their values, and about their strategies. Over communicating means communicating it over and over again, not to the next tier of senior leadership. No, even to further cascading down or digging down to the grassroots level of the organizational employee or workforce, they need to speak to them. Now, if this is not taking place, there is a higher possibility that people may turn negative very quickly. So the leadership needs to be working very closely with the workforce. Then they also need to figure out how the workplace people, means the employees, do they have friends at their workplace? Are they friends or foes to each other? So this is another indicator that they can help increase further. So in Patrick Lencioni's book, he mentions, which is called 5 dysfunction of team. 5 dysfunction of team. He has mentioned something very interesting: exercises to build the level of trust and to increase the level of friendship between people. So the exercise that they have recommended is that all team members sit together in a room and they go through a small exercise of introducing themselves. Now, it's not introducing that I do this and my name is Nair and I work for this department. No. The introduction goes like this: that my name is Nair and I come from this town of this country and I have got 5 or 7 siblings and this is my order. And one of the most challenging, or one of the worst challenges that I faced was my childhood challenges, for instance. So people, when they share their childhood challenges, some of the 2 or 3 guys, they share the same challenges. For instance, one of the common challenges when I ran this team workshop many times, one of the common things that team members spoke about was being bullied in their schools. So if one guy, imagine if one guy is talking about being bullied at being bullied at school, and the other guy also talking about the same thing, that means they have a higher chances of getting close to each other and becoming friends to each other, right? They have something common to talk about. Similarly, in one of the workshops, 2 people said that they are very poor in navigation skills, and even they sometimes they get lost, even if they're using Google Maps. So this was something common. Sometimes people, they say football and so on and so forth. So come back to the point. This is a way to increase friendships between people at workplace, right? So when people are good friends to each other, then they have better relationships. When they have better relationships, they are more committed to work because they start loving their workplace. They start enjoying their work. Then comes that job security, another thing that companies get addressed directly. The job security means how secure do you feel at work, or every time you feel that your next day is going to be the last day,
Is your last
right?
day.
So this job,
Mm,
yeah, job security.
mm,
So there are a couple of things
mm.
that you need to address on leadership. So let's come back to our point. So we said that we are going to address this on three different levels. So one level we already talked about, which is leadership level. Let's go,
Mm,
let's go to the next level, which is the individual level, right?
mm,
So on individual level, first of all, and I'll tell you an story, an interesting story over here in this context that I happen to coach someone in this context. So let me tell you the story, and then I'll come back to the point. So what happened is that you remember we talked about a few minutes before, we talked about our team where two people were let go, they
yeah,
were fired, right? So
yeah.
in the same team, there was another guy, and this guy happened to be in contact with me, and this guy came up with his own challenges, and he says, my biggest challenge is that my whole team is toxic. This is the word that he used, toxic team, and I am feeling strangled and what you call, I cannot breathe in this team, and please help me find another job. So this is the purpose that he got in touch with me, because he wanted me to help him find another placement somewhere else in some other organization and whatnot. I thought, all right, this is fine. I can definitely help you then. But let's look at the challenges. What exactly is happening? He says my entire team is toxic, and whenever I try to do something new and no one encourages, I have introduced so many different initiatives. My initiatives are shut down, and we work extra hours and so on and so forth. So the environment was entirely negative. I continue to listen to this guy for some time. Then I asked him a question. Let's forget about a team. Let's park the team on a side first. So since me and you are in a direct conversation, I would like to find out about yourself. So I would like to find out you as a person. Let's suppose his name is Ahmed. Let's suppose for the sake of
Mm,
discussion. So Ahmed, what are your visions 5 years down the line? What you would like to achieve 5 years down the line? So Ahmed had never thought about this. And then he started thinking, and then after a couple of minutes, when he started thinking, he said that I would like to be in this position. The guy was from technical background, and he said that I would like to have my own business and so on and so forth. Now I could really see the shine in his eyes when Ahmed started talking about his own visions of a life and what he wanted to accomplish. I said, all right. And Ahmed, how is your routine and so on and so forth. So interestingly, what we ended up is that the team discussion was parked on a side, and Ahmed started discussing his own things. So I asked Ahmed, "Are you interested in changing, transforming your future?" And definitely he said yes. I said, "All right, so let's work together." He happily agreed. Then me and Ahmed, we continued to work for a couple of months, and in that couple of months, following changes took place, and that I would like you to understand and really see the value here. So Ahmed, when he stopped focusing the team and he started focusing himself, he started working on his health and his family relationships. So Ahmed and his wife, they both took the boys in the evening and started walking around the block. They had small children at that time, and one of the boys was in a stroller. So they started walking. This started his engagement with his family and started giving him some satisfaction. So this is one thing. Then it started directly having positive effects on his health. Ahmed also had some visions according to his professional in his professional excellence and so on and so forth. One of the visions was to reach the top on his in his technical profile. So what he started doing is that he started creating YouTube videos and
mm,
started his own channel of whatever technology that he was working on. So I don't want to go into the details, but I would like to tell you that he released many videos, and his videos were quite they received quite a good acceptance from the community. So this gave him, this alone, this thing means creating videos and being able to help other people gave him a lot of satisfaction, because he was able to contribute to the community, right? Now, when he was working on himself earlier, imagine if this was his level earlier, then he started rising further, right? So one thing about his health, second thing about his ability to contribute. Now, once he started doing these two, he started doing something very unique. Another, what he started doing is that he started posting some information about his technical domain in his company's network. That guys, this is also possible, this is also possible, and so on and so forth. This started catching attention of seniors, and the seniors started engaging him in their own projects. Now, Ahmad's team was watching all this show, and they were surprised at this transformation. Now, the point that I would like to see, that the team discussion, the toxic team discussion, were all parked inside on a sidewalk, you can say. After that, we worked for 3 months together, and not a single time Ahmad spoke about his team. Why? Because Ahmad was looking inwards. He was talking about himself, his personal growth, and his personal visions we can accomplish, and so on and so forth. So this was rather unbelievable that he never ever spoke about his team again after the discussion. Interestingly, now let me come back to his team. So interestingly, his team also was watching this. As I mentioned earlier, his team started coming back to him and started getting engaged with Ahmed, and started getting engaged in the sense they started taking advices from him. Interestingly, I also watched some of his team members joining the gym together and going to gym with Ahmed. So he later on joined the gym as well. So it was a very interesting story from my own coaching experience.
So
now
he's leading by example, right? So if
Yes,
we can, right? So he's a leader by example, right?
that's correct.
Ah,
Yeah.
mm.
So the point over here is that whenever negativity starts affecting you, and you believe that you are stuck in such environment, look inward, look at yourself. What do you want to have by your own presence in this world? What are your visions, a year long vision, 5 year, and so on and so forth. Start working on your vision. Stop talking about other people. Start talking about yourself, and not only talking, start executing based on small little steps. Get a coach and work. Now, this was
Right.
the second level.
Just
Can we go
on
to-
that point, can I just add that
Please.
there will be a link shared towards the end of this call, and anyone on the call can get in touch with us via this link, and just you will be asked to share a few details and have a conversation about where you see yourself going, what is your vision, and we can set up such a call with you.
Yeah, inshallah.
Please go
We'll be
ahead.
more than happy to have that call. All right, so let's come to the third point. The third point is that if you happen to be in such environment, you are not in a leadership position, and you have already worked on or started working on yourself. So what are the options available over here? Right. So first of all, if you happen to be in such environment, stop hanging out with people who are negative, because negativity is again contagious. So that means there is a higher possibility that you might also get affected. So stop hanging out with people who are negative, means stay away. This is one. The other thing is that when there are some negative people that you could spot that this or this or this guy are negative, I'm pretty sure that there are some people who are positive at the same side, or in the same team, in the same department. Start hanging out with them. Start talking about something that could be done, rather than talking about something that cannot be done or that cannot be addressed. Imagining that this environment is completely negative. In some of the situations, we can also confront people one to one. Remember one thing over here, confrontation is never to be done in public, because whenever a confrontation is done in public, other people may get offended, and they may become defensive to whatever they're doing, right? Because one of the signs of negative talkers is that sometimes they are very confident, or sometimes they are overconfident. and they take pride in doing negative about the organization, some stealing information or stealing other things, or damaging the organization by doing something, and not only by doing, is spreading the news and talking highly about that, about their negative achievements. So coming back to the point, staying away when you do the confrontation, do the confrontation one to one, and in confrontation, whenever you do the confrontation, make sure that you don't accuse the person. uh, Ask them a question based on some evidence or some facts. For instance, let's say there's a guy Amjad, let's suppose, for the sake of our discussion, and he is a negative person, and you have found him doing a couple of things or speaking negatively about the organization. So in your one-to-one conversation with Amjad, what do you do? Say, Amjad, I would like to talk to you about something. Will you be open to that? So now what you have done is that you have asked for permission. You have asked for his permission, and now he is more receptive to what you're saying. Then what you do, you ask another question, that Ahmed, I've noticed this and this about the organization. I noticed you saying this about the organization. Is that correct? Yes or no? So Ahmed would say correct, most likely, because he has been doing that. You were in the same conversation. So then I asked Ahmed, what could be a possible consequences of this kind of communication, or this kind uh, or what did you mean by when you said this? So inquisitive questions or reflective inquiry-based questions. So we recommend that you get into this practice of asking questions to people rather than accusing them, and helping them understand and realize what they're doing, which is more damaging and harmful to themselves and to the organization, right? So this is how you confront people. And when you do the confrontation, and by asking questions, and by asking questions, you have put the other person in a reflective inquiry process. That means this is where you have started coaching the other person. Well, coaching is nothing but putting the person in the reflective inquiry process, right? So this is most likely, this will save your relationship with the other person, and at the same time you may be able to bring the person out of negativity. This is one thing. The other thing is that you as an individual, you have the power to change the discussion. Sometimes, let's suppose you are sitting in a gathering and people are talking about the organization or the company, the manager, or whoever, the work environment, and so on and so forth. You have the opportunity to turn the discussion to something. Guys, let's talk about something where we can do, rather than talking about something where we cannot do. Imagine if everything is out of your control, right? So what you have done again is that you have changed the course of direction to something that can be done, right, rather than something that cannot be done. So I hope I was able to put my point across.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
is there
And that
is there
was
any question? Go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, I think you prompted well there. If there's questions, then this is a great time, because we will have to wrap up in 5 minutes, because we're coming up to time. And
Right.
thank you so much for sharing that especially the part about confrontation. I think is very valuable, because it's one of the things that we avoid. And I think one of the reasons we avoid that is, commonly speaking, we don't consider the coaching approach, right? Like, so how can we be just inquisitive and curious? We have a very sort of conventional view of what a confrontational conversation looks like. But there's a different way. There's different ways of going about it. Like, as you mentioned, just to recap, one of the things you mentioned is, don't do it in public. Do it in a private space where it's just you and that other person, and it's not personally attacking. It's asking firstly their permission, which is very important, and then also asking more open-ended questions to understand, where they're coming from, and helping them realize what's really going on, and that how it's not serving them or their organization. So I think that's incredibly valuable. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
I remember one incident over here, when I wanted to make a confrontation, and I asked a person directly, I would like to have a one-to-one time with you. I want to speak about something in person. Will that be okay for you? He said okay. So we met in person. Then I asked him that if I tell you something that could increase your personal effectiveness in the organization, will you be open to that? He said yes. So I remember this conversation took place maybe in 2019 before COVID. So I repeat my question that I would like to, let's suppose his name was Sada. So Sada, I would like to tell you something that will help you increase your effectiveness in your department, in the organization. Will you be open to listen to my ideas? And Saad
Of
said
course.
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I said that these are a couple of things that need to be avoided. And these are a couple of things because this person, the one that I'm specifically talking about in this example, I named it Saad, although the name was different. So this person used to talk negatively about his bosses, about his manager, especially about his manager, because he was not promoted, and the guy was working in that organization for quite some time. Now, when I mentioned to this, he was so thankful to me because no one has ever highlighted this to him that he should stop talking negatively about his managers. Interestingly, what happened? The guy was smart. He understood the message, and since I took his permission before I spoke out, he did not feel bad about that, and he considered this as a sincere advice. The guy stopped talking badly about his manager, and this happened in 2019, if I'm correct, probably July 2019. In After COVID, after a year and a half passed by, his approach changed, and his directors were watching him change, and soon he got promoted. For so many years, he was stuck in his career, and I don't say that this change only led him to the promotion, but I would say this definitely changed his way of communicating with his managers and with other people. And see this, there's one thing over here. In Urdu, we have a saying that even the walls have ears. That means if you're talking negatively about someone behind the back, that means you can talk negatively about the person who is sitting in front of you, right? So please make sure in your mind that whenever we talk negatively about somebody else's in somebody else's absence, it reaches him or her. No, somehow it's my belief that no one can stop that. One way or the other person gets to know about that. Right? So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think Saad, we are closing.
I think we should do a quick roundup
Yeah.
of what we've discussed today. So if you allow me, so we kicked off the conversation with the indicators for negativity, right? What does it look like? And then we had some discussions, and you shared some really fantastic stories with us today about the consequences of negativity, both short-term consequences and also long-term consequences to organizations, to individuals. And we had a few interesting questions as well about credibility, which was a bit off, but gave us a good idea for another different topic. And then we've also talked about how to deal with the negativity. What can we do at 3 different levels, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. We talked about the
Yes.
leadership level,
Yes.
and then at the individual level, and
Personal,
then what was the
yourself.
third level?
The other people means what do you do with
The
the
other
people?
people, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other people, and how to
The
have
confrontation and
conversations
so
with
on.
other people. So I think that summarizes our conversation today. Would you like to add something to?
No, I think we are done. There's one thing that I would like to add over here is that guys, if you want to stay positive, and the story, everything starts from you. So that means you need to be positive first. So there are a couple of things that you need to take care of, and these are extremely important. Ask yourself, do you do exercise? Regular exercise is critically important for physical well-being, physical and emotional and mental well-being as well. How is your diet? Is it excessive coffee or caffeine or whatever? How is your diet? Because your diet also plays a critical role in keeping you positive. I remember one HBR article, which is manage your energy, not your time. It's a beautiful article. Just type manage your energy, not your time on Google, and it will show you that article from HBR. Wonderful article to read. And that article says something very critical, which is, see, the HBR is talking about this, which is managing your sleep. Amazing thing, amazing article that I have found. And I have in my coaching experience, I have seen over and over again that people, they mess up their sleeping schedules, and because of this, their day does not remain positive. And one of the most important thing, Saad, thank you so much for highlighting this, in fact. So one of the most important things, guys, we sometimes we don't pray askar of morning and evening, and especially there are some askar which are specifically focused on positivity. So we can, for instance, if you type on Google, what is the dua for going to masjid? Just type dua for going to masjid and just start reciting that dua as well. It will, you will know it's talking about only Noor. Noor means positivity, and this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has advised. So with this we close. Jazakallah khair for all this time that you have been here with us, and look forward to seeing you again, inshallah, after 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.